For several months, NTV Investigates has been combing through documents, reports, and video footage, piecing together details that could be possibly an international airline compensation scandal. 4 whistleblowers have provided leads that finger a former senator who is now a sitting governor. Further, they put Parliament's integrity on the spot on the basis of the following. Did a fictitious petition find its way to the Senate? If so, how? Further, 8 parliamentary staff were listed as petitioners and relatives of victims of an Ethiopian airline crash. Apparently, nobody discovered that they were staff attached to the very senator who had indicated as having advised the petitioners. How? Were their signatures forged? Did the forgery fly? How? Also, there is a case of a city lawyer who raked in more than 63 million shillings from Boeing company as compensation for a victim. Yet, that payment was strictly pro bono. Again, how? My name is Duncan Haimba, and this is NTV Investigates. On Sunday, 10th March 2019, a Nairobi-bound Ethiopian Airline flight ET302, Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft took off from Bole International Airport in Addis Ababa at 8:38 a.m. The plane, which was still brand new, lost contact with air traffic controllers just 6 minutes later. It crashed thereafter near a place called Bishoftu, some 62 kilometers east of Ethiopia's capital, Addis Ababa, killing all 157 persons on board. 149 of them had been passengers, with the remaining 8 traveling as crew members. The crash site was a horrific scene. The ill-fated aircraft had plowed deep into the ground, creating a crater of about 28 meters wide and 40 meters long, with the wreckage being driven up to 10 meters deep into the soil. The debris, personal effects, and body parts were strewn all over the scene. It was harrowing. Flight 302 crash would become Ethiopian Airlines' deadliest air accident yet, surpassing the 1996 fatal hijacking of its Flight 961 off the coast of the Comoros. Many of the passengers were traveling to Nairobi to attend the 4th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly. Out of the 35 countries whose nationals perished, Kenya was the hardest hit. 32 of the victims were traveling on Kenyan passports, while 4 others had dual citizenship. Amid growing international scrutiny, the aircraft's manufacturer Boeing admitted full responsibility for the crash involving its 737 MAX 8 plane, which turned out to have had a manufacturing defect. The legal agreement with the families of the 157 victims meant they would be paid by Boeing, independent of any other compensation they would eventually get from the Ethiopian Airlines. The move paved the way for the families of all victims of the crash from 35 countries to seek compensation in the U.S. under the laws of the state of Illinois. American law firm Friedman Rubin in Seattle, Washington, had filed the case against Boeing, but reported that less than 10 Kenyan families had sued.
It is reckless endangerment of human lives. So when you are putting profits before the lives of people and making decisions about what's going to increase the money of your shareholders over the danger to the public punitive damages can be in play.
The next move appeared to have opened the floodgates for a legal drama whose impacts are still being felt by some of the families. The American lawyers placed an advertisement in the newspapers in May 2019, seeking to partner with Kenyan advocates to push for compensation of Kenyan victims. Then Murang'a Senator, now Governor Francis Irungu Kang'ata, was among Kenyan lawyers who stepped forward to represent the families who had lost their relatives in the crash.
Victims do not know how to obtain justice. In fact, what these lawyers are doing today, ideally, is the work of the government to explain people that they can get a redress against Boeing.
But now the governor is on the spot over his role in the compensation case. Two of his former staff members at the Senate between 2017 and 2022, Davis Mburu Karanja and Peter Njuguna Muthubi, together with two other associates, Jen Wairimu Kamau and John Kunyiha, have come up with what they term as a big scandal implicating the governor. They say they cannot understand why the then senator included their names in a petition of persons purporting to be families of those who perished in the crash, yet they did not lose anyone in the accident. The petition, which was received by Senate, was requesting the House to press the Kenyan government to expedite the issuance of death certificates so that the next of kin could pursue the compensation. In the petition, the 8 were listed as having lost their relatives, while in reality, they had neither lost anyone nor were they aware that their names were being used as next of kin. Davis Mburu Karanja had been employed as Senator's coordinator for Maragua constituency, while Peter Njuguna Muthubi was coordinator for Kandara. Davis Mburu, who has since fallen out with the governor, asked for his face not to be shown, says he learned about the petition by accident.
When we were looking at my name on the internet, we found that my name was appearing in the list of the victims or the families that had lost family members in the Ethiopian air crash.
Davis Karanja says he quickly alerted his former Senate staff colleagues as soon as he came across the shocking discovery. Was he part of the scheme and only came out after they fell out with the governor? Or how did he suddenly discover his name? We asked.
Well, what we did, it was one night. So when we heard that the Ethiopian Airlines has been paid, we decided to learn more about the story. So one night, I was sitting down with my laptop. I wrote my name, Davis Mburu Karanja. Then I immediately wrote my number, my phone number, or the ID, one of the two. I saw the names appearing and a certain list which is there. There's a certain link. So I found myself, there's a petition about the Ethiopian air crash where I am appearing, together with the other staffs who we worked with in the Senate. Yes.
As what?
We were working as staffs of Irungu Kang'ata.
You appeared as what on the list?
On the list that I'm a victim in a way that have been affected by the deaths of the people who died in the crash.
The petition that was submitted to the Senate on the 19th June 2019, purportedly by 8 relatives of the Ethiopian airline crash victims. The alleged 8 were all staff members under the then Murang'a Senator Kang'ata. The two joined forces with Jen Wairimu Kamau and John Kunyiha and wrote this letter to the Senate on 8th November 2024, and the letter was stamped received 3 days later on 11th November 2024. Subject of the letter was, and I quote, inquiring regarding petition dated 19th June, titled Petition to the Senate concerning lack of support for issuance of death certificates and facilitation of counseling by Ministry of Foreign Affairs to families of the victims of the Ethiopian air crash." End of quote. The following day, on November 12, 2024, Senate responded to the fore, detailing how the petition was processed from the day it was submitted to the Senate on 19th June 2019, the date the Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights tabled its report on 19th October 2021. It is Jane Kamau and John Kunyiha who wrote to the Senate on November 11th, 2024 and included the names of David Karanja and Peter Mudhubi, since the latter two were on the list of purported next of kin.
After 1 week wakaturudishia barua na tukaona ni ukweli majina yao ilikuwa. Na kutoka hapo tukachukua jukumu ya kujua zaidi ya kwa nini majina yao ilikuwa kwa hiyo list. Na the time tulijua na tukajua ukweli, ndio maana tukakama sasa na kuangalia vizuri na kufanya due diligence ya kujua ni kwa nini. Tukaangalia signature, nikauliza Boru kama signature yake ni ya ukweli, akasema si ya ukweli. Nikauliza Mudhobe, tukaona si ya ukweli. Kuangalia, tukaona wale staff 8 wa Senate that time ni wenye wako kwa hiyo list wote.
In addition to disowning the list, the two have also disowned signatures appearing on that petition. They presented a different set of signatures contained in the letter they wrote to the Senate seeking clarification on the matter. NTV could not independently verify the claims on the signature, but from a casual look, the signatures appear markedly different.
If you look at the document that we have taken to Senate, whereby I've signed myself, the document that I have been received by the ESCC, the DCIF, the FRC, you'll find my signature there. But the signature appearing in that document, I don't know about it. I even don't know how my name got into that list. Up to date, my signature was forged. And actually, how comes all staffs were united in one tragedy? How? I wish you are hearing it's 1 or 2, then there's some other people. But how comes the people who are working in the Senate from Murang'a County from 2017 to 2022 were appearing in that list?
That they are relatives.
They are relatives perished.
Ile kitu imefanya tupushi maneno yote ama tusukume ili jambo ni kwa sababu tuliona yale majina yalikuwa yameandikishwa kule kwa list. Si watu wenye walikufiwa. Ilikuwa fake names ama majina ambayo hayakuwa yanafaa kupelekwa wapi? Kupelekwa huko. Kwa sababu kama Boru hakuna mtu wao alikufa. Mudhobe pia hakuna mtu wao alikufa. That's why tulisukuma ndio tujue, na tunaomba ombi kubwa sana. Hao watu walikuwa wenye hiyo ndege wajitokeze tujue ni akina nani au mawakili wa Kenya walikuwa wanapigania. Kwa sababu wale ile list tuko nao wanasema hakuna mtu wao alifanya nini? Alikufa. So tungeomba serikali ya Kenya wale wataingilia waingilie ndio tujue wenye walikuwa wamehusika na hii ajali walipata haki yao.
The 8 parliamentary staff who were presented as fake relatives were Sami Kahura Muriuki, Eliud Maina Wanja, Davis Mburu Karanja, Noah Gashusha Gashanja, Andrew Dhairu Ngone, Peter Njuguna Mudhobi, Abdallah Juma, and Edna Njoki. NTV Investigates wrote to Parliament on 24th and 26th February 2025, requesting, pursuant to Article 35 on access to information, for a list of staff who worked in Senator Francis Irungu Kang'ata's office between 2017 and 2022, in order to verify if indeed the 8 names appearing were his staff at the time. Parliament indicated that Governor Kang'ata would have to be notified first before we could get the response. It is not clear why the Commission needed to notify Murang'a Governor before processing our request. Parliament responded by stating, and I quote, "We have considered your request for the information, reviewed the legal framework guiding the right of access to information under Article 35, the Access to Information Act 2016, the right to privacy under Article 31, the limitation of rights under fundamental freedoms under Article 24, and noted the obligations of the Parliamentary Service Commission under the Data Protection Act 2019. Having considered the above regulatory framework, we regret to inform you that we are unable to furnish you with the information you have requested, as doing so will be exposing the Parliamentary Service Commission to legal risks." End of quote. The petition containing the names of the 8 was received by Senate on 19th June 2019 and reported to the House by Deputy Speaker Kithure Kindiki on 2nd July 2019.
I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by the residents of Murang'a County and families of victims of the Ethiopian air crash. The salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows. As no support, counseling has been provided in spite of the post-traumatic stress, and that the families have agonized to get death certificates to no avail.
As per the norm, a number of senators were given the floor to make comments, observations, or clarification in relation to the petition.
We have been told that there is very little counseling, and then this begs the question, counseling services, in this case, is not even providing finances, and those people need counseling very seriously. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, families lost people that were breadwinners, and we are being told here that it is even a challenge to obtain a death certificate. Without that certificate, Mr. Speaker, it will be a challenge to be able to make claims to those institutions where these various persons were.
As a nation, we must have a conscience, and as a nation, we must have a soul.
It could be a big shame for this country when lawyers out there in the United States are already running amok with this matter, trying to deal with the consequences of that crash, when we are still talking about, identity cards or certificates of birth. So immediate action should be taken.
I want to support the petition and urge the committee to act expeditiously. In the interim, Mr. Speaker, instead of waiting for the report to be brought to the House.
On that day, the petition was committed to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations. So urgent was the petition that a directive was given to the committee to work at supersonic speed.
Ordinarily, it should have been 60 days, but I directed that the report be brought within 2 weeks.
However, on 16th July 2019, Deputy Speaker Kithure Kindiki made a communication from the chair redirecting the petition to a different committee.
I am now reviewing the earlier directives, and I direct on that first prayer that is relating to death certificates, this matter be seized off by the Committee on Legal Affairs, Justice and Human Rights, and the committee is directed to engage the Attorney General.
That in a matter of distress of this nature, and given the pain that the families are going through, that you in fact need not go through a committee of this House, that the Speaker should direct the Attorney General on behalf of the families of the victims.
Murang'a Senator Francis Irungu Kang'ata took to the floor declaring his interest in the matter, disclosing 2 crucial pieces of information.
Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to inform the House that I am one of the lawyers who are handling that matter. Number two, indeed, the petitioners behind this petition are personally known to me. And it is also true that death certificates are being processed currently by the Office of Ministry of Foreign Affairs. There's even a desk. The problem which these petitioners, and it is me who advised them to come up with this petition, I did not want to participate in person because of potential conflict of interest issues, because I'm handling some of other matters in that matter, was because that there are several instances, some officials in that ministry are delaying, are even refusing, and therefore I thought it is an administrative issue which this Senate, through its relevant committee, as correctly interpreted by your message, Mr. Speaker, can intervene and cause hastening of that process.
All right.
So I support.
All right.
Since Kangata told the Senate that petitioners were known to him and he even advised them, we crisscrossed a section of Murang'a County to establish whether there were any victims of the air crash whose relatives had filed a Senate petition, if at all. Davis Mburukaranja and Peter Mudhubi hail from Maragua and Kandara constituencies, confirmed no such incident occurred to their relatives. We then crossed over to Madharite village, Kiharu constituency. This is where Eliud Maina comes from. He is a former staff in the office of Murang'a Senator Kangata and currently is said to be a chief officer health in Murang'a County. His name appears number 2 on the list of petitioners as a relative to a victim who died in the plane crash. His home is next to Mukurueti Collection Center. We asked his neighbors if the village lost anyone in the 2019 Ethiopian Airlines tragedy. 2019 kulikuwa na ajali ya ndege ya Ethiopia.
Ile ilikuwa inaitwa ya Malaysia.
Ya Ethiopia yenye ilikuwa natoka Ethiopia ikikuja Kenya. Kuna mahali mliwahi pata, kuna mazishi iliwahi kwa hiki kijiji?
Hapana. Hata siwezi sahau, siwezi kumbuka vizuri, sioni kama kulikuwa na kwa hii kijiji.
Wewe Junishosho unajua umekaa kwa hii area. Miaka kama 5-6 hivi kuna mahali ulisikia kulikuwa na mashaka ya mazishi hapa ya watu walianguka na ndege?
Hapana. Nani hapa? Hapana, sio hapa. Inyini mwigweta kereza keu? Hapana, sio hapa.
Jaifanyika. Hata kwa hii boma kujaiko na matanga.
Hapa. Mataga ile iko sini ya mama mwingine amekufa sasa na hajasikwa sasa.
Bado?
Bado.
Lakini hakuna watu uliosikia alianguka na ndege?
Hapana. Hata sikusikia.
Walisema ati hapa kulikuwa na mtu walikufa hapa ndani, walikufiwa. Kuna kitu kama hiyo?
Hakuna, watu wako na uongo sana. Hakuna kitu kama hiyo hapa. Nyinyi mmesikia hiyo?
Kwa hii boma. Kuna matanga yote mliwahi sikia kuna mtu alikufa ama mliwahi kama majirani mliwahi usika mkasikia kulikuwa na kifo yote huko?
Sijaisikia.
We spoke to area assistant chief on phone and he denied any death having occurred from the Ethiopia air accident. 2 relatives of Eliud Maina requested not to appear on camera to avoid possible family fallout, but expressed their shock and disappointment upon learning that his name was presented as a relative to a plane crash victim. From Kiharu, our next stop was Mathioya constituency. Noah Gashusha Gashanja is current County Executive Committee member, Youth Affairs, Culture and Social Services in Murang'a County. He was also a staff member under Murang'a Senator Irungu Kangata. He is listed number 4 on the petition, which claims he lost a relative as well, and needed a death certificate. We went to his home in Karunge village in Mathua constituency and asked the same. His younger brother Stanley Kamau was equally shocked and denied them having lost a relative in 2019. Before we could interview him, Gashusha called, warning him against disclosing any information, asking him to pass the phone to me. And he spitted many words per second. And as I requested to explain the nature of our visit, he ordered I hand back the phone to the brother. In the same homestead, we engaged Ronald Kamau, his uncle. Kwa hii mtaa, kwa familia yako, kuna mtu amewahi kufa kwa ajali ya ndege mwaka wa 2019, ile ndege ya Ethiopia?
Hapana. Hakuna.
Manake alikuwa nasemekana kuna family member hapa alikufa. Na Noah ni relative wake na alikuwa kwa hiyo ndege. So ndio nilikuwa nataka kujua. Mwahi kuna mtu yote ya familia yako mwahi kufa kwa ajali ya ndege?
Hapana. Hakuna.
Okay.
Hakuna.
Hata
kama hii kijiji yote kama angekufa ingejua. Hapa hakuna.
Kwa familia yako hakuna?
Karunge hii yote. Sioni.
Kwa familia yako?
Sioni.
Okay.
Hakuna.
Having done a sample in the county and satisfied that no deaths were reported, we left. Immediately he got wind of the matter, he began making calls and visited homes of the two former staff. It is alleged their families were threatened. As a consequence, one whistleblower, Peter Mudhubi, through Ngonyo Munywa and company advocates, sent a demand letter indicating he had renounced, retracted and withdrawn the information he had given. Few hours before the letter arrived, the same Mudhubi had shared disturbing information with his co-whistleblowers the previous evening, saying he will call them. His dad was not well and would be taking it personal. They can play with anything else but not his parents. When asked what was happening and advised to report the matter at Kandara police station, Mudhubi responded that he didn't care and would get them head on, adding that Murang'a County operatives had dispatched their men to his home to harass his parents, and he vowed taking matters personal against the person behind. When asked by Kunyiha whether the parents were safe, Mudhubi responds by saying they are well, but this is unacceptable. It is this communication from him talking of harassment from county government operatives that puts into doubt whether he voluntarily renounced and retracted the interview, or if he did so under duress from county government officials. Also, whereas the demand letter purports Mudhubi had retracted his testimony, this letter by the whistleblowers to Parliament bears his name and signature. It remains a permanent parliamentary record. Mudhubi has not renounced or recanted the letter he sent to Parliament, which triggered this investigation. The four in the letter they sent to Senate had also wondered why they were not invited to Parliament if they were truly the next of kin in this matter. Surprisingly, when the Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee tabled its report on 19th October 2021, it claimed it met the petitioners. A contradiction. Was the Senate part of whatever scheme was going on around the compensation? Nandi Senator Samson Kiprotich Cherargei was the chair.
So if you met these petitioners, how comes their submissions are not there? We only have the ministry and the attorney general.
And I agree with them largely, because if they had made submissions, it would have been here in my report. But unless I was not chairing the committee that day. But I'm of course aware of all the facts. But that is why from the recollection of my memory, I don't recollect meeting them as a committee when I chaired. But on the aspect of Attorney General and the ministry, I can recollect. Yeah, that's why I'm saying from my recollection, I cannot recall we sat with the petitioners to deliberate on this petition. But I'm saying...
But the report says you did so.
But it doesn't mean physically. It could be the submission, written submissions, or the petition itself was sufficient for us to process without deliberations with the petitioners.
When the report says I think held consultations, what does that mean, held consultations?
It means also we can use your representatives, either legal, we can interact with your documents, we can interact with your submissions, we can interact with you physically. In fact, there are instances where we even have petitioners appearing, then they go, then we call them for maybe further clarification.
The report doesn't give the date, and then the report only has the Attorney General and the ministry. Did this meeting ever happen between the committee and the petitioners?
From the recollection, I don't think that meeting happened, and that is why I'm requesting for indulgence that I have talked to Secretary to try and retrieve the answer. Because the answer only I have is when the petition was being referred, when it was being read, and I can even, the members of the Senate then at that session contributed and supported the petition. So from the recollection of my memory, I don't think we ever sat and deliberated a meeting with the petitioners. But they really did show intention of appearing before the committee from the by word of mouth when this petition was being brought.
Although at the beginning of the interview you said the petitioners appeared.
No. In the answered, in the report I have, it indicates that they appeared. But from the recollection of my memory, they have never appeared before the committee, and that is why the only person who can bear us out of this is the answered. If it was not captured in the answered, then it is not there. You know, that is
the committee chair.
Yes, I agree. I was the committee chair, but sometimes, you know, sometimes we are human, we forget. But the only thing is that we can get the answered, and I can tell you the answer I have here is only during the referral of the petitioner by the Deputy Speaker. And then, yeah.
In that purported petition from the 8th, it requested the Senate to address two issues: pushing the government to facilitate issuance of death certificates and offering psychosocial support. So, if the petition was genuine, why did the two-man committee of Cherargei and Kangata travel to Seattle in Washington to meet American lawyers, while the matter raised in the petition related to death certificates that were to be issued by the Kenyan government?
From my recollection, you know, it doesn't mean they need to appear physically. By the fact that they petitioned Senate, they appeared, because I have their petition here. And we knew what they wanted. They wanted the release of death certificates and the cancelling. And therefore, the reason even the committee went to Seattle, US, was on a fact-finding, because we were opening an inquiry.
Karanja and Mudhubi also raised the issue of fake or falsified signatures appearing on the suspicious petition.
No, signatures look totally different. Yes. Because I am not expert of signature, yes, but from the face value, yes.
Okay, and yes, then they are claiming that they were staff members of Murang'a Senator and they lost no relative. Did the committee verify who are these petitioners?
No, we didn't, because the fact that, you know, when the petition is presented before the Senate, it is taken to Secretariat to ensure they meet the requirement of the standing orders.
Does that now confirm why they never appeared? Because appearing in person, the committee would have been able to see who are these persons. Does that, the fact that they never appeared in person, the committee never met them in person, the report says it met them, you have confirmed to the best of your recollection they never appeared, and then they are saying they were staff members of Senator.
That could be a possible theory, because as a committee, I think it had kept my attention then. Because the fact that it had met all the standards until it was read, you know, a petition goes through a life of course, like, it should not have been read in another forum, there is no legal intervention, there is no policy. So I agree with you, that is a possible scenario. And that explains why they never appeared before the committee. Now I get it, and that is why we have been trying to look with the Secretariat for the answer of their deliberations with us, but we can't get it. But I'm still requesting for maybe today only, If it is not on the answer, then we never met that individuals. And if they have admitted that they never lost any, but I'm not saying, by the way, you should add a rider, that it doesn't mean even if they were never victims or they didn't lose any friend, as a Kenyan, they have a right to petition Parliament. Because it's a public interest litigation.
This petition says they are the ones who are psychologically, who needed psychosocial. So it is specific to them, not any Kenyan petition. Because this petition to the Senate said they are in need of death certificates and they need psychosocial support. So this was directly to them.
But another rider is you can do a public interest matter before the Senate.
Not in doubt,
yes.
but on this one, specifically.
No, of course this one is specific. I agree.
Yes.
I agree. It was specific that they needed specific intervention by the Senate. Which I think, then this is a different matter altogether that should be looked at by the committee.
According to the Constitution, petitions from members of public require to be handled and dispensed with, including tabling of a report within 60 days or 2 months. This suspicious petition was presented in the Senate on 2nd July 2019, meaning by September 2019 it should have been done with. But its report was tabled in October 2021, 2 years later.
But the 60 days from the day of committing was 2nd July.
Yes.
That should come to early January.
2 months.
2 months. July, August.
That is 60 days is 2 months.
Yeah, but you know the problem, I've told you the problem is that the committee does not have only one petition. Maybe at that time...
Senator, you're a lawyer.
Yes.
The law says a petition, a public petition has to be processed within 60 days.
Correct.
It was committed on 2nd July.
Yes.
This means on 2nd September, the report was supposed to have been tabled. So I'm asking in terms of the constitution of 60 days,
yes.
And this was committed on 2nd July. Why did your committee, when did
the communication from chair dated 16 July 2019 redirecting the petition to standing committee on jailer.
Okay.
So it was committed on 2nd July, but the chair later on 16, 2 weeks later.
When you do 2 months,
yes.
on 16th July.
It was supposed to be 16 September. Yes.
So
but you know, my brother, most of the petitions have always violated timeline.
It is Nyamira Senator, then chair of the committee, who tabled the report on the floor of the Senate, and senators went for the committee for doing a shoddy job. It was a heated session.
Arising from these observations, the committee does not make any recommendation on the matter. Instead, Mr. Speaker, the committee will continue to engage with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ensure that the process of verification of the next of kin for the death certificates which are yet to be released by the ministry is concluded.
Is it in order that a petition can be responded to without a recommendation?
Mr. Speaker, in my many years of work, including many years of teaching report writing, I've never seen a report that does not have recommendations.
Mr. Speaker, the allegation that was before the committee was failure by the government of the Republic of Kenya failing to process death certificates to the victims of that air crash. That was what was before my committee. Before I took over, I don't know what was the wisdom, but I believe there was some wisdom behind the decision by my predecessor, Senator Cherargei, to take the committee to Seattle.
If it is a question, and Senator Cherargei also owes this House an explanation, because we are feeling exposed for no reason. If the petitioners were demanding that they needed counseling because of trauma and they needed death certificates to pursue compensation, why did the committee go to Seattle?
Can I be given up to Thursday, because so that I cross-check the records we did with the secretariat then?
Having denied signing the alleged petition, Davis Mburu Karanja, through his lawyer Lempa Soyinka, is asking hard questions after learning of his name on the Senate petition.
So Mr. Mburu tells me that while I am going all through this, there is a petition that was presented in the Senate alleging that I lost a relative in the Ethiopian air crash that happened, was it on the 10th? Yes, 10th of March. 10th of March. That happened on the 10th of March 2019, isn't it? And he also tells me that, funny enough, or by coincidence, or by sheer happenstance, that all the 8 people in that petition happened to have been Mr. Kangata's employees. So that information would make anybody raise his antenna. My client denies that he was ever called by the committee that was investigating that. That particular committee says that they actually engaged my client insofar as that particular accident or air crash is concerned. Mr. Davis Karanja Mboro, from where I stand or from where I sit, I can tell you that he did not have any relative in that particular air crash.
Lempa raises serious legal issues regarding his client's concerns with the petition.
Let us first of all deal with the documents that we have. Let's assume that he did not even commit the crime. Let's assume that he has his own defenses. But when you forge documents, that's a crime number one. Once you present them to anyone for either pay or for any action, that's called uttering false documents. Then, if, for example, you intend to obtain money by uttering those particular, using those particular documents, that's obtaining money again. It's tantamount, obtaining money by false pretenses. So, this having been an air crash that had an international Boeing company, isn't it? I believe there are other probably international crimes that probably he has committed, or the person who came up with a list of non-existence.
When asked what action needs or should be taken against the governor, the journalist turned constitutional and human rights lawyer says,
it is alleged that David Mboro Karanja, my client, had a relative who perished in that particular air crash. My client says that he did not. So therefore, it is very important for him to come and say as much, because he could also be implicated. With the time, maybe the Boeing sends its own investigators and finds out that indeed a relative of Mr. Davis Mboro Karanja received money which he did not. So we would be telling under Article 35 that the senator then and now the governor provides us with the information as to how much he received on behalf of a fictitious relative of my client, and to return that money to Boeing company, or the Kenyan investigative machinery takes over. The EACC, the DCI, Interpol, anyone. Because anyone mentioned in that particular document is in danger of being picked up and being asked why he presented his name to his senator to claim money, knowingly that they did not have any victim in the crash.
NTV sent an email to Murang'a Governor Francis Irungu Kangata on 6th March 2025, asking him to respond to allegations raised against him. The governor responded in brief by stating, and I quote, "Thanks for the email. Now that I have gotten your email, let me inquire your statement that is couched as a fact. The alleged petitioners have denied knowledge of the said petition. All of them? Is this a fact? Let me retrieve the alleged petition. Ask each if your statement is factual and revert, because your statement indicates all of them have rebutted or denied the statement." End of quote. Curiously, his comment on if all of them have denied the statement came shortly after NTV received a demand letter from Peter Muthubi indicating he had recanted and withdrawn his recorded interview. Then a court injunction restraining Nation Media Group followed. It was issued by Principal Magistrate Hosea Mwanginganga. Was he in the know? Hence his last statement. The governor had initially gone silent, but later agreed to a meeting for an interview.
In fact, by the way, I'm telling you.
When we arrived at the venue at his private office in Nairobi, he changed tune and declined to speak on camera. The gravity of the matter and the public interest notwithstanding.
Remember that person losing.
And these critical factors informed our choice to employ our plan B.
These people, as a matter of fact, they were people working for them. That's a fact. And all of them.
Is the governor going to grant an interview or not?
Okay, I think I will not. And the reason is there is every likelihood that this matter will escalate. You have to prove. You know the proof. The onus is on you.
Oh.
The onus is on you. These people, as a matter of fact, they were people working for them. That's a fact.
Petition to the Senate concerning lack of support, issuance of death certificates and facilitation of counseling, specifically to these 8 whom you've admitted were your staff. So they were directly affected because the petition said they need 2 things: to be issued with the death certificates and psychosocial support.
I'm saying, if you interpret strictly and narrowly, you are right.
Okay.
You are right. But if you interpret it broadly, it's neither here nor there.
Okay.
So that's the argument.
Okay.
Secondly, arguing that the people who died were not related genuinely with these people is also erroneous, because I'll show you a file for some people who are from Murang'a, who have some relationship with some of the people in this petition.
Okay.
Because Murang'a lost some people, and some of them later became my clients. But even if you are to do a story claiming that the petition is fighting this petition, probably there would be something there that would be. But what concerns me more is the allegation that I got the money on their behalf, which is completely false.
I think we're on the same page on that. Why don't we then just have it on record as we said, just a clarification?
I do things in a civil manner. My fights are civil. They are not Kawira Mwangaza. The worst I can do is to maneuver in court. Because surely that's the only skill.
But you've done that already. You've done that.
You see, in fact, by the way, the worst I can do to anyone is fighting court. In fact, I have told Lempa, because I know Lempa is the one who pushed this. You know, he defamed me, and I kept quiet. If the story goes, Lempa, what else can I do? I'm not Lempa jaribu. Ukisukuma hivyo unanisukuma sawa. Na wewe defamation.
That we are there. So it is true.
That person allegiance. Allegiance of that person is more to us than to you.
It's true.
In fact, when you hear the story, one of the things you have to consider is whether all those people will appear on TV. They will do affidavit to recant. It is possible.
Yep.
You know, there are Murang'a people.
Yes.
They will say, hey, okay, I didn't know. Hey, this is not what I thought I said. In fact, I was speaking in English or what. They will all say, this was a fake.
That is okay. That is okay. These things
you
happen.
So I just said, okay, when you talk about TV, sign here. That must weigh in your mind.
We are aware of all this. It is possible. We are even
Even a question we asked about the language.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there an interpreter? Yeah. Who was there actually listening to that? Then unasema hii watu.
Lakini sasa
imagine kesi ya 2021. Imagine mimi nafunguliwa mashtaka ya hivi Ruto. Lakini sasa
Lakini enyewe governor on a serious note, so you just give us an interview.
No, nataka tuende kotini. Mimi amtaki tuende kotini.
So you want to disown your staff?
Tukutane kotini. Kotini pa. That's my tactic. Anyway, it's every morning.
Okay. Sawa. If there will be no room where you've been defamed.
How was what kwa TV?
Yes.
Affidavit to college.
All the 8 persons listed on the petition were employees of the immediate former Murang'a senator and now Governor Irungu Kang'ata. 4 of them are currently serving as public officers in Kang'ata Murang'a County Administration. Noah Gashushia Gashanja is County Executive Committee Member for Youth Affairs, Culture and Social Services. Eliud Maina Wanja was in 2023 appointed as the Chief Officer for Infrastructure and Community Projects, after which he was moved to his current post, Health Chief Officer. Andrew Thairungone is said to be serving as Kang'ata's driver and photographer, and Abdallah Juma, whose specific duties remain unclear but operates in the county government. NTV also contacted the Boeing company to find out if it received the list of the 8 fictitious relatives for some victims of the ET302 air accident. Boeing's corporate media manager Leslie Thompson responded by saying, and I quote, "We will refer you to the Ethiopian Accident Investigation Bureau for any information about the accident and investigation." End of quote. We reached out to the Ethiopian Accident Information Bureau, but they never responded to our queries. But as the Senate saga was going on, a real family that lost a real person was beginning to grapple with what turned out to be a second nightmare following the loss of their loved one. This is the picture of Sister Florence Wangare Yongi, a Catholic nun who was serving in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She perished on her way home. Her family's story, the reason Ralph Nguma, a conveyance and aviation consultant, is a troubled man. He was in Chicago, Illinois, when it was determined in a deferred criminal prosecution agreement between Boeing Company and the United States Department of Justice that Boeing would create a victims' beneficiaries compensation fund following the crashing of its 2 Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircrafts within 5 months in Indonesia and Ethiopia. The fund was approximately 163 million shillings at the time they were to be handed to families through their lawyers without them taking any fee. It was to be pro bono, meaning the participating lawyers were not supposed to charge any fees.
When Boeing was found culpable, or when they were being investigated, they created 3 funds. So one of the funds was, it's like to say Pole, sorry, to the family, which was about $144,000, give or take. And when they got into the deferred prosecution agreement, these families were supposed to be given these funds. These monies had nothing to do with any of the legal work or the claims that were against Boeing in Chicago. And the money was supposed to be given to the family directly. The funds were sent to the firm of Ara Nchange, who was to act as a conduit. So this was a pro bono arrangement. Meaning no advocate was supposed to touch a penny of that money.
Ralph Nguma identified one Todd Smith, a trial lawyer in Chicago, then through his friend lawyer Isaac Odhiambo, who had dissolved his law firm, got a Kenyan lawyer, Japheth Change, who was Odhiambo's friend, to represent the Yongi family.
Since I trusted my childhood friend, Isaac Odhiambo, and so I went to him, I discussed this matter with him, and he told me he had the right fit, who was Japheth Change.
In his statement to DCI, Florence's father, Francis Yongi Muturi, now deceased, told detectives that on 3rd June 2019, Ralph Nguma took him to the law firm of Arwa and Change, where they found a contract already prepared and were asked to read and, if agreeable, sign to allow the law firm to represent them in pursuing compensation. The contract was in relation to a civil suit against Boeing in the US. It was indicated that they would not pay any fees, but the law firm would take 28% of the compensation money once the civil suit was finalized and compensation paid. Then, 25th June 2021, Nguma, Change and Isaac visited him in Nakuru, gave him a claim form from Boeing 737 MAX crash victim beneficiaries compensation fund to sign. This is where the drama began.
When Francis Yongi called me when I was in Chicago and said that he understood that the money had already been released, but he had not gotten any money. I reached out to the advocate, and he said he'd reach out to them. The time was coming back, which was sometime in November. You had to sign a receipt. 2022, had to sign a receipt. So the receipt was to be remitted to Chicago. That means the family has accepted that they have gotten the full amount as remitted from the United States. They were given the forms to sign by the advocate, who was Change.
The total amount Francis Yongi was to receive following the death of his daughter was Kenya shillings 163 million. The dollar-shilling rate exchange of 113 Kenya shillings at the time. But in August 2021, he received only 100 million instead of the required 163 million.
I talked to Francis Yongi and the family, and I told them how much they were to get. And I also gave them the supporting documents that had been furnished with from Chicago. Issue came when he told me that he had only received 100 million Kenya shillings. He confronted the advocate, who in turn said he would return the money, but after a few days actually went ahead and sued him, frustrated him using the security apparatus. Police were sent from Nairobi to go and arrest him from his Subukia home while he was ailing with cancer at the time.
Francis Yongi was ailing from cancer at the time, and it was already taking a toll on his body. But now he had another fight on his hands, that of pursuing compensation funds of his late daughter. He reported the matter to DCI's Economic Crimes Unit, which began investigations. Todd Smith from Chicago sent his statement to DCI, detailing everything that was supposed to take place. He stated that the money that the Yongis were supposed to get had been pre-agreed with Boeing and therefore was not part of any legal suit that would have warranted legal fees from any lawyer. As such, he told investigators that the 28% retained by Change was illegal. He also told DCI of what he believed to be altered contracts and forged signatures on the documents given to the family. DCI's Economic Crimes Unit investigated the matter and forwarded its findings to the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. In March 2024, the ODPP indicated it was persuaded that available evidence was sufficient with realistic prospect of a conviction, and that evidentiary and public interest test met for institution of charges, recommending that Japheth Otieno Change be charged with stealing by agent contrary to Section 283 of the Penal Code, for holding and retaining at least 23% of compensation to the state from the fund, which he was not at all entitled to, even if he were entitled to a 14% as he claimed. 2 counts of forgery contrary to Section 349 as read with Section 345 of the Penal Code in respect to a letter he created and a contract he prepared.
For this money to come, the family needed to consent and say where the money was supposed to go to. They prepared 2 letters claiming to be from the late Francis Yongi, so that this money could come. And in his statement, he says that he never signed or never executed any such documents. And Change himself in court has said that it was his employee that actually did the forgery. But if the head is the one that has given instruction, I mean, the rot starts from the head. Yeah, so he blamed it on an advocate called Remington at Otieno.
The matter was at Nairobi's Milimani Law Courts, but after seeking deferred prosecution, Change swiftly moved to Kiambu High Court and filed a petition at the Constitutional and Human Rights Division on 5th April 2024, and 6 months later, on 18th October 2024, Lady Justice Dora Chepkwonyi delivered a judgment declaring that the criminal investigations under ECCU Inquiry File number 124/2023 and the intended prosecution of the petitioner, being Japheth Change, violated his constitutional rights under Articles 27, 28, 29, 40 and 47 of the Constitution. An order was issued quashing the criminal investigations against the lawyer. Also, an order of prohibition was issued restraining the DCI and ODPP from preferring any charges against Change pending resolution of the dispute through civil and or commercial justice systems, given that the dispute revolved around breach of contractual terms.
So a judgment came in his favor to quash the whole investigations, and yeah, he just walked scot-free with the money, and yeah, I can say now that it's quite hard for me, even for me right now, to trust an advocate in this country, because you do not know if you remit money for them to do a transaction, if they're ever going to do such a transaction. And this judgment is, to me, a landmark judgment, but it is also a very bad judgment because it gives any advocate the license to steal money from the client, and they can just use the same authority.
While all this was going on, Francis Yongi's health deteriorated, which might have been made worse by the loss of a portion of his late daughter's compensation. In April 2023, he succumbed to cancer, dying a bitter and frustrated man.
Mr. Francis Yongi never got justice, and he never enjoyed any of that. So he had a double loss. He basically lost his daughter and lost money in the process. Got harassed by the police. And because I was the whistleblower in all this, I also suffered the same repercussions. So they have threatened my family. They've threatened me, but the truth is the truth.
Details of the persons who truly got compensated, if any, and the amounts they were paid, if at all, remain a tightly guarded secret. But the two cases have raised new questions about how the crash compensations were handled, especially in the hands of Kenyan lawyers, who are not supposed to get any part of the money in the first place. Did the real victims get compensated, and just how much did the Kenyan lawyers pocket, and at whose expense? Duncan Haemba for NTV Investigates.